Okay. We'll call the city council meeting for Tuesday, October 15th, the regular meeting to session. If you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of
America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to approve the amended agenda. Councilman Hall will be attending remotely from 24 Main Street, Yapa, Colorado.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
The agenda?
The agenda.
Agenda, excuse me.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is the consent calendar. All matters listed are considered routine by council and be enacted by one motion. Unless there's a question, I will look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I will now make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is open forum. This is time for public comment on any items that are not on the agenda. There are, I don't know if anyone's here. If there's an item on the agenda you wish to address, we'll give you time to do it when that item comes up. So it's at that time.
And Mayor Ryan, if I could just remind anyone here who wishes to speak on the public hearing items number 1 and 2 under new business to please sign in the sign-in sheets that are right outside the door. Before we start the public hearing, we will go by that list for those who wish to speak specific to the bond conversation. Thank you.
Okay. So public comment or open forum is open. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to the council? We do ask that you try and keep your comments to about 5 minutes.
Oh, we can do this in less than that.
Okay.
I'm Don Menninger. I live here in Nisswa, down on Pine Haven Road, across from Viking Label. Lived here since 1988, and I've watched this city grow. And it's a pleasure to see it grow and all the new businesses and everything. But I heard a rumor going around. Matter of fact, I read a little bit about it in the paper that we're going to purchase some property and we're going to move some employees. From where? I'd like to know. It's just a question. I'm, see what's going on in the city. I didn't read anything about it anywhere. Could you help me out here?
Certainly.
And that will be part of the presentation for the public hearings.
Okay.
So we'll definitely go through all of that information for you in a little bit.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
All right.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Don.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll close open forum. Next item on open forum is Nisswa Garden Club update.
Good evening. Thank you to the Nisswa City Council for allowing us to speak at your meeting tonight. My name is Mary Williams. I'm president of the Nisswa Garden Club. Along with me is Jane Kimball, who is the chairperson for the Nisswa Gardeners. Jane is in charge of the beautiful plantings that everyone enjoys so much in Nisswa. We want to share with you what we are and what we do for this city. I want to give you a quick history of the Nisswa Garden Club. We were organized in Nisswa in 1939 by 10 women. In 1940, it evolved from 10 interested members to a group of 39 women who were interested in civic and home beautification projects, flower arranging, and practical knowledge of flowers, fruits, and vegetable gardens. 40 years later, the members decided to encourage men to join. Their hard work, interest, and dedication, along with their talents, provided valuable impetus and inspiration to the club. Today, there are more than 75 men and women who are members of the Nisswa Garden Club. The Nisswa Garden Club supports a variety of activities and scholarships. The Nisswa Garden Club Gardening Committee works hard all summer long to beautify Nisswa by planting and maintaining many gardens in areas such as we do the community center gardens on either side of the community center entrance, the gateway sign at the Nisswa Elementary School, the gazebo and trail containers as well as the garden beds at the south side of the Chamber Building, the Memory Gardens. Now, new in 2024, we added 8 large self-watering pots at the upper level of the downtown Pocket Park. We also added 3 dogwood shrubs. The planting committee also filled the terrace gardens beds with the sides of the side steps leading down the tunnel, including ground level perennials along with the west and north walls. In 2024, we also introduced both the chamber and the city a guide to the different plantings we do. The Nisswa Gardener Committee are all volunteers who do the planning, ordering, purchasing, delivery, planting, and the fall cleanup. Volunteer hours for 2024 currently are at an estimated 124 hours with another 6 to 8 hours to finish cleaning. Planning time for the 2025 ordering and purchasing estimates about 5 months altogether to get it all put together. Our planning committee spends a lot of time in price comparisons for all the spaces that we plant. Go ahead.
So right now, the city Parks and Rec give us $900, and that with that money, we plant all around the chamber, the pots on the trail, community center, and the school. With the addition of Pocket Park, we were granted $5,000 from the Pretty Good Fund, with which we purchased some large self-watering pots and did the plantings, and the feedback has just been tremendous. Every time we're there, we get so many compliments from business owners and locals. I was amazed at the traffic that comes through that tunnel on bikes or strollers or, you know, just walking. So the thing is with the volunteer hours, if you would have to pay an employee to do that, it would be a considerable amount of money. Even if you contact one of the bigger landscape firms, when I left them more than 15 years ago, it was 75 an hour. So I think the time that we give to the community is well worth our effort. We have been found out that unfortunately the Pretty Good Fund is not going to be able to fund us anymore. So we were hoping that you would consider some options for us to continue planting that Pocket Park and do the maintenance there for you.
Yeah, one of the biggest hurdles that we had this summer was watering all of our new plantings. As we know, at the beginning of the summer, it was great. We had a lot of rain, but once the rain stopped, the irrigation system wasn't always working down at the Pocket Park. So all of these, and most of the volunteers are women, an older variety of women. Well, we had to take jugs of water, fill the jugs of water and go plant. So I'm not sure what's going to be happening with the water system, but that's something we'd like to be thought about, is maybe work on the irrigation system.
But we were just hoping that you would consider helping to fund us to continue the beautification project. I mean, it's just amazing, all the constant feedbacks we have on positivity from what it was a few years ago before you started to do your cleanup. So that's pretty much what we're asking you to think about, to continue the projects with us, and our volunteers are glad to help, and that would save you hiring an employee or two, or even your summer help would save quite a bit. So
Yeah, we enjoy doing it, and it has beautified.
Has looked
Nisswa
really nice.
greatly, so.
I thank you very much. It does look nice. You do an excellent job. I was at the chamber today and I was looking at the flowers, the pollinator portion of it on the south side is beautiful. I think that it's something that we should definitely have staff look at and see what we can do between Parks and Rec and maybe Tom with Public Works.
Yep. Yeah, we talked to Tom quite a bit.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Irrigation systems, for some reason, this year was hard on them. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I don't know.
But we'd like to help work with you to try to, mitigate the situation. If
Yep.
you would help us by funding a little of the planting material.
I don't know what the rest of the council thinks, but I think we
I think
should
it's a great idea.
Yes.
look into it
Yeah.
and have staff get back to us.
I believe staff is supportive of that as well.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, Pickle Factory Annual Presentation. Terry.
Well, good evening. Here we are again. 75% of the year is over and I'm looking to meet and or exceed my budget expectations for the year. Go ahead and hit the next one. Right now, we're at 1.2 million for the year. My budget's at 1.5, and I don't see a problem in the forecast for not reaching that. There's the numbers right there. Next one. So what's working for us? Well, we've had our 3 biggest days of the year. Well, the 3 biggest days of the year are Freedom Days, Rib Fest, and then the City of Lights. This year we set a record on the Freedom Days as far as total sales. And then we beat that again on the Rib Fest by quite a bit. There's like 2,200 pounds of ribs sold that day.
There was a lot of cookers.
My bartenders took care of the VIP tent, which was formerly ran by Main Street. And we made enough money to pay for all the events outside, which was a huge success for us. You can see on that last one, we had quite a few weddings at the community center this year. And you can see by how it was decorated for this one, you can really do a lot of things there to make it look nice. We've had quite a few compliments on the kitchen over there that was redone here a couple years ago, and it's really a great event over there. So here's a couple pictures for the Rib Fest. The way we're always running specials. The main reason the off sale is up 28, well, it averages 28.8% profit in the off sale is selected bourbons, allocated bourbons. Right now, I'm promoting a bourbon that we put together at the liquor convention through Maker's Mark. We took 2 hours and we had 8 groups select a recipe for that. And it's probably one of the finest bourbons I've got at the store right now. For 110 proof, it's super smooth. We're always running specials. We got beer bucket specials. We got seltzer bucket specials. We run happy hour specials during the football game for the Vikings, which are actually really doing well this year.
You just jinxed it.
Well, I'm sorry, but I've been eating a lot of crow. This month is breast cancer month. And I never thought that Mich Ultra would sell on tap. Today's the 15th. We've already tapped our 3rd keg. The profits from through Budweiser will all be distributed locally this year. So most of the bars in the area have Mich Ultra on tap, and a certain percentage of each keg will go to that charity.
Nice.
This year we set a new record for the city of Nisswa and the Pickle Factory for raising the most money in the state of Minnesota through our municipality for our local fire department. Last year we raised just about 21,000. This year we're at 33,600. Second place was Longville. We beat them by $3,600. So between the Pickle Factory and Longville, we raised 60% of the money for the whole state of Minnesota. If Brian from Spirits, who raised 5,700, if he'd have went on his own, he would have came in 3rd. So I don't want him to come in 3rd. I want him to promote ours. So, but they did really well. If you want to show the next one, there's the advertisement for outside, the flames and everything. And those yellow stickers, those were personal donations from people that would come into the bar. So we'd promote. Spirits was on the left or on the right. They just did a fantastic job. That whole store was full. Absolutely amazing. There's a couple checks. Those are the ones I'll be sending to the Country Echo. What's next? So how we stay current? Well, I'm also a director with the MMBA. And there are a lot of trends that that are going on in the state with the legalization of marijuana and THC products. That's one of the biggest hurdles right now. I'm just gonna tell you, I'm not a cheerleader for this, but there are a lot of other municipalities that are making bank on this. So it's something that we're gonna have to put together, at least apply for the permit to sell it. Even if we don't, that's gonna be up to you guys. There's a lot of city councils that, or a lot of municipalities that didn't even go to the city council because you're selling a legal product. So it's just one thing that they're looking at us and a couple other stores that are like, what are you waiting for? It's like, well, we have a moratorium till the first of the year, if I'm correct. So it's just something that we're gonna have to put our heads together and figure out what we're gonna do. Probably had the best staff ever this summer, with our college kids coming back. They're hard workers. I hated to see them go in August, but, they're all excited to come back next year. So, any questions?
Anyone have a question? No, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it, Terry. Nice work. Okay. Next item on the agenda, reports, city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Good evening again, members of the council. Welcome everyone here tonight. For the council's information, my report is in your packet. There are a handful of items that we will be discussing during new business later on. I did want to highlight that our Parks and Rec Department, the commission had an informational session on October 3rd with the Brainerd Lakes Area Community Foundation. That was well attended, and that video is online for anyone who wishes to watch that and learn more about the parks initiatives that are happening. The police department had their open house tonight. Looked like a great turnout from what I could see throughout the evening here. And then there are two important meetings coming up on the Public Works Committee's agenda. October 30th, there's a presentation on city infrastructure planning and a public information meeting on November 27th regarding the 2025 road bond. So I just wanted to highlight that. A couple of other things. There is a document out in the entryway on the table for the public. It's a 2025 budget in brief. So it provides a high-level summary of some of the city's budget information and corresponding levy impacts. Hopefully it's a useful tool and a reference for anyone who's just looking to get a little more familiar with the city's budget process. A couple more things just to highlight. It is the time of year where the League of Minnesota Cities does the Mayor for the Day essay contest. So I have shared that with Molly Rasky at Nisswa Elementary. And if any of the Nisswa elementary fourth graders participate, they will let us know. And hopefully we can invite one of their students here to a council meeting again, which is always fun. I believe lastly, what I have for the council is something to think about that we will revisit likely in December. It's the time of year where the league does their 2025 city policy review, and they will set their legislative priorities for the upcoming year. City council might want to engage in a conversation about if you have priorities that you'd like the city to focus on for the upcoming legislative session. Potentially housing might be one of them. We can discuss that in December more and set some priorities if the council is inclined. So just wanted to share that, and happy to talk with any of you further if you have more questions on that or want more information. Aside from that, I think I will speak on the downtown master plan update next, but are there any questions for me on any of the items I just mentioned?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. I did provide in your packet a separate document with an update on the downtown master plan process. The committee had a great couple first meetings, and then we met about a week ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe now, and felt like we probably jumped ahead a couple steps in the brainstorming, concept design process. So I've had conversations with some of our committee members, some of the business owners, and with WIDSEF, and we are working to readjust the approach. We will be putting out 2 surveys for the public, one for the public residents, visitors, part-time, seasonal, all of that. And then one specifically for business owners to get some feedback. We will share that with the committee, and then we will continue to build upon the information we're receiving and then building concept designs, more in partnership with the committee members, to help, have them help us walk through that process. WIDSETH will launch the interactive project website mid-November for the projects. We'll have a lot of that historical information and then the survey information and more as we continue through that process as well. And I'm working with Callie from the chamber to set a downtown business listening session. She and I corresponded today, and that meeting will be Wednesday, October 30th at 9 a.m. We'll create a flyer, we'll get that out, disseminated to all the business owners, but we'll facilitate a conversation here at City Hall for those who want to be here in person. Again, we will have a survey specific for business owners. If you'd like to just complete the survey that way, there'll be a couple of options. Lastly, the question I have for the council is, at the end of my memo, I mentioned that there's two approaches we can take with how we finish up the planning process. The original timeline reflected completion of the process, late winter, early spring. It's a pretty quiet time of year, and there's a pros and cons to the timing of that. People are less busy, and potentially from a local community business owner perspective, might have more availability to provide input because it's a slower time of year. However, it's also a slower time of year, so you might not have as many people in town to actually give comment and feedback on the concept designs. So we could push that out a couple of months to, more like early summer. I don't know that that would impact anything really, but would like to gauge your thoughts on if you have a preference or if you'd like the committee to look at that further.
What does the business community think?
I can ask that question in October, certainly, and get their feedback. If the council doesn't have a strong opinion either way, we'll work with the committee and we'll adjust as we need to. But I thought I'd ask the question in case you felt strongly either way.
I guess I have a question.
Putting it off a little bit until people are back. The snowbirds are back, the people, because that's one problem that the city's had for a long time, for many, many, many years.
Yep.
As far back as I can remember, even in the 80s, is people that are gone during the winter come back, and it's like, well, when did we discuss that?
Sure.
So I think making sure that they can be part of that conversation, getting this information out. And to the people that are here, you can sign up on our website and you can get notifications every time something new is posted to the website. It will shoot a notification out to you that says, hey, this was just updated. And then you can go in there and you can look at that. And that's for every portion of every department within the city can do that. We still have that option. So you can get notified, but I would think waiting until like the late spring, early summer to make final determinations, if we're at that point by then,
Okay.
Would be better.
Okay. I think Councilmember Hall had a comment as well.
Joe?
Yes, I guess my question is, I guess my first statement is, before we go any farther with this, I would like to see it paused actually, and us as a council have a conversation on what our goals are out of this, because I guess what I've come to learn and discover, that even our goals right now aren't the same as when maybe Bethany was involved and had presented what her goals are. And so I would like to even back this up a step farther, hit the pause button, and see us as a council have a workshop or something on this.
What's changed with our goals?
Nothing has changed. The proposal, the RFP that was originally presented by Bethany, that was how WIDSETH responded to it. Ultimately, they were selected as the consultant, and we've been operating with that, since that time. So I think part of the last meeting, though, might have, pivoted in a way that was confusing to the committee. And so that's, I think, the point. We are taking a step back to make sure that we are oriented with the goals that were established on the front end, and then moving forward and ensuring the committee doesn't have questions and they feel, engaged the right way, and that we're all clear on that. So that is a part of the upcoming meeting conversation.
My question though is, how do we know? I think that there is a misunderstanding between the council and you and the committee. I don't know that I'm aligned, and you saying that there was a pivot. It's going in a completely different direction than I was in the understanding that this was going for. And if we're going down the road at all where it's already led, I'm completely opposed to this. It's not what I voted for.
I think the council member Hall's point, a workshop could definitely be warranted. We have a new council member in the past few months that's been on board.
I was not aware that there was pivots and that there was, I mean, the only thing I was aware of is that there was a presentation at the committee meeting that took the entire committee by surprise. I believe. I mean, it wasn't like, how did we get to that point? And that's why the city administrator, who actually kind of got this dropped on her lap because our city planner left, had some conversations with those principals involved, and that's the reset that I think she's referring to. But
right,
I
but
did talk
even
to
with
one of the
that,
committee members today that sent us all the email that we all got. And
well, and even with that, John, I want to
So-
say time out. We have a new person in that position for Bethany. And I think bringing him up to speed to take the reins on this would be the appropriate thing, because Bethany was taking the reins. And once again, we're not underneath any timeline, as you just said, in the spring. So in my opinion, the appropriate steps would be to get the new staff member up to speed that this really falls underneath.
That's fine, Joe. We can have a workshop. I have no problem with the workshop at all. That's fine.
Me either.
So, but
One suggestion is we could, at the end of our agenda, the council will be setting a meeting to canvass the election results. You could potentially piggyback workshop onto that evening.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can work to schedule a separate date or have it before the regular November meeting, whatever the council would like to choose, and certainly can have
we can do it on the canvas results. That'd be fine.
just a suggestion.
That works for me. I
Just
mean,
to be-
I'm assuming I'll be here. I don't know if everyone else, you know.
Okay.
But I would also encourage the committee members to be here too, please. I think at a workshop.
Can do, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Well, anyone. I mean, the whole business community at whole. So, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next item. City attorney.
Good evening, everybody. I don't have anything to report at this agenda item.
Okay, city engineer.
Good evening, everybody. I guess I've been working on the 2025 street improvement projects. Our survey crew has completed all of the streets except for the ones in the Upper Roy Lake Road area. They should finish that this week. And in the meantime, we've been taking the topo that we have and working on some design and trying to figure out, just trying to get a preliminary idea as to what the roadways are going to look like, and hopefully have a meeting here in the very near future with staff. The other thing I've been working on is the downtown master plan. That's it.
Okay. New business. We are on to public hearing, proposed property tax abatements. Resolution approving property tax abatements. Okay, so first step is the open public hearing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll need a motion to open a public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, I so move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are now, public hearing is open. Presentation by staff / consultant.
Turn this a little bit so I can speak to everybody throughout their presentation. So good evening, everyone. Thank you again for being here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jenny Max. I'm the city administrator here, and we'll be providing an overview of the property tax abatement bond and the capital improvement plan bond that we will be discussing tonight. As far as process, again, I'll provide a project summary, and then I will turn it over to Heather Casperson and or John Burmeister from PFM Financial Advisors. They're the city's advisor for any debt issuance or things like that. And we will complete our presentation. The council will open it up for public comments, so you'll be able to come up. We have a couple names on our list, and then if there's anyone else who wishes to speak, you can do that. The council will then close the public comment period, close the public hearing. They will deliberate and then decide what action they would like to take on the abatement bond, and then we will do the same thing with our capital improvement plan bond. So first, I would like to just take a half a step back to ensure that everyone has perspective on kind of the city approach to what oftentimes takes many years to get to a certain point in time. And in 2021, the city adopted a strategic plan. And the reason we did that is because we had a comprehensive plan that was the 30,000-foot vision of the future of the city of Nisswa. And we had our annual citywide budget that really identified, the daily, monthly, operations of all of our departments. And trying to connect those two sometimes can be challenging, going from very day-to-day items to very, very long-term planning efforts. And so with that, we created that link, which we refer to as our strategic plan. We have 5 categories within that plan: our long-range infrastructure plan, policy and ordinance synchronization plan, employee retention and satisfaction plan, operations efficiency plan, and safety plan. The long-range infrastructure plan back in 2021 was probably the highest priority, most in need identified by the city. And when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about equipment, buildings, and that public infrastructure that everyone uses: roads, sewer, lift stations, all of those types of things. And how do we start to create our 10-year capital improvement plans so that every department that has infrastructure knows what is needed over a 10-year period to maintain and replace on a cycle established for each of those department operations? It's really important. And we came to realize pretty quickly after a couple of years of doing this that it's very expensive. It is very expensive to operate all of our departments when we truly inventory all of the infrastructure that we have. So we started that conversation in 2021 in the spring. And in October, kind of getting back to that long-range infrastructure piece, we thought it would be important to start to have conversations with property owners and developers, specifically in the commercial corridors, what we refer to, really that Highway 371, 1377 intersection. And there's different, quadrants, you can think about it that way, within potential development opportunities. And working with our engineer, Widseth, we created a projected street and utilities expansion. And this includes new street potential, new sewer lift station additions, and conceptually city water. We'll talk more about city water in a few minutes. In October, we held a couple of public information meetings with mostly focused on the business owners, property owners along that highway corridor, but they were public meetings and open to anyone to kind of see what we're talking about. And really the hope was to hear about what those property owners' potential plans might be so that we can align our efforts with possibly their development needs or initiatives. From there, the plans and the ideas just kind of sat for a little while. And in mid-2023, so about a year and a half later, a section of property along the corridor, highway corridor, came on the market. It was 134 acres and a mix of current, at the time, highway business and urban residential zoning. Here's the map of that property. It's owned by Stuart Mills. I'm sure many of you are familiar. And something that the city wasn't expecting to come on the market, but it did, and the council started to talk about how does this, in what way might potentially align with some of the infrastructure conversations the city has been having over the last couple of years. And so some of those conversations that we've been having for the last couple of years involve back to our strategic plan. So not only long-range infrastructure, but we think about operations efficiency. And one of the challenges that we're seeing, and we've talked about over the last few years, is our public safety operations and the fact that they're currently located downtown. Our police department and our fire departments are seeing increases in call every year. And because they're housed downtown, where we're seeing an increase in activity more than just those 3 busy summer months during the year, I mean, we're seeing it year round. I think we can agree that it's continuing to increase, which is wonderful. But how does that create challenges with how we operate, how we respond to calls, provide service, and operate those departments. So that was specifically one question we were talking about, and we had been talking about if we needed to build a new facilities for public safety services, where could they potentially go? Also in conversations that we have throughout the year, and especially during budget season, is what is the likelihood of development occurring along that highway corridor in the next 5, 10, 15 plus years? And truly at the end of all of this, I think those bottom two questions are really important and key to all of this. What is the city's role, and what needs can the city anticipate? And how proactive or reactive are we going to be with development opportunities so that we have a stake and a say in how our community is developed, so we maintain it in that with that character that we all know and love. Here's just another map of essentially what is quite an opportunity for potential development in the next handful of years, and how much do we want to be involved actively in that process to ensure that Nisswa develops the way that our community would like to see it developed. So as I mentioned, in mid-23, the property came for sale, and just over a year ago, I would say, kind of in the fall of 23, the city started to engage the property owner in a variety of number of potential scenarios of what types of property might the city be interested in looking at acquiring. Fast forward 6 to 8 months later, lots of conversations and back and forth. The city entered into a purchase agreement in May with Stewart Mills for 70.5 acres for $2.1 million. That is essentially half of the property available, and it's the northern half, just south of Sportland Bait in that section there. Since that time, some of the components of that purchase agreement outlined that the city would need to go through quite an extensive due diligence period. So we completed an ALTA survey, phase 1 environmental study, archaeological study, a wetland delineation. And all of that information had to come back satisfactory to the city council in order to move forward to potentially issuing a bond. I believe in early September, the council reviewed that information and determined that that was satisfactory based on the information we received, and so authorized the next step, which would be the bond issuance. That is still one of those caveats within our purchase agreement, a successful bond issuance, which are a number of steps to complete that. Tonight is one of those nights to have that public hearing. With the bond issuance and with respect to the 70.5 acres, the city doesn't see a need to retain all 70.5 acres for future city use. But we recognize that we're going to need to put in infrastructure, and we're going to need to work with that property in order to set things up to be as successful as possible. We've determined that approximately 50% of that acquisition will be needed and retained by the city, so about 35 acres of that. So with this potential bond issuance, we would separate that 50% as a taxable bond and 50% as a tax-exempt bond. The tax-exempt bond offers a lower interest rate because it's property that the city is going to retain for our future use, for our facilities, infrastructure, et cetera. And then the taxable bond would be for potential land that the city would look to resell in some point in the future and be able to not keep, as we don't need all of that property. So the idea is that if we complete the acquisition of the property, we would then move forward to planning out the infrastructure, roads and sewer specifically at this time. And then that property would be available for sale with that property along 371. And I'll show you a map here in a second. And the goal is ultimately to recoup some, hopefully most, of the costs of the land and the infrastructure that we put in by selling that property that isn't needed for our use and that is highly desirable highway frontage. So in concept, this is what we're working on to determine what that percentage split is for city and non-city future use. And as you can see, Highway 371 is at the bottom of that picture there. That land just above that is the largest section of future development that we would look to sell and recoup some of the investment that we're making in that. I will speak to some of the components from the city side of things. I've mentioned public safety needs. Ideally, potentially putting a public safety building in this area would allow for very efficient response to calls to the throughout the community because of the access easily any direction in our city, being right on the highway like that. We do have a placeholder for what says city admin. It's a future city hall. That's long term in the future, but it's nice to have some land and opportunity if and when a future city council might need to have that conversation. That city hall is not best suited here anymore because of community growth or other things. We would have some potential options there. And then with respect to city water, the council has had conversations at a high level to say, how do we best set the city up for future success if and when that would be a conversation that the community wants to have? As I mentioned a couple slides ago, there is a lot of development that could be, there's a lot of property that could be developed over the next 5 to 20 plus years. And would city water in that commercial area specifically help support that and also help address environmental concerns and other things when we're not constantly adding new wells in the area? If we had a system that made sense, that was planned out, does that make sense? So that is, the idea is to have that for the future city councils to use if and when. We don't have any specific plans or timeline for that. There is a lot that goes into, excuse me, really any of these components. And I know that we've had conversations during our budget meetings and things that the council would really like to see. Applying for grant opportunities, state bonding, potentially federal dollars. What avenues are there to generate revenue to accomplish some of these bigger tasks? And that'll take quite some time. But once that land is sold and developed, we don't have that opportunity anymore. Another reason that city water is a good candidate for location here is because of the elevation. You can't just put a water tower anywhere. It has to be in the right spot to facilitate how water treatment systems work. That's about the extent of my knowledge on that. I just know that you have to consider location, and it can't just be placed on any vacant property. There's a lot of information about infrastructure that we are working on putting together a full presentation about roads, sewer, water. That will happen at our Public Works Committee meeting on October 30th. I hope you can come. It will also be live streamed so you can watch it, but we'll provide a lot more information for you if you're interested in knowing more about that. That is the end of my presentation. Just a reminder to the council, so following public comment and your deliberation, the question is, if the council wants to approve a resolution approving property tax abatements in an amount not to exceed $2.3 million. The purchase price is $2.1 million, but we do have bond issuance costs. We've had out-of-pocket costs for all that due diligence work that was completed. So we would look to recoup our out-of-pocket cost as part of this bond issuance. And with that, I will turn it over to Heather or John, who has just a couple slides on really the technical components of the bond, just to make sure everyone's aware of the statute authority and some of those variables. And then you can open it up to public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I just want to let everybody know out there. I know I've heard people say that, why weren't we looking at other land? Why did we just jump on this? We had been looking at other pieces of property. And then when we talked with public safety, they noted that certain parcels wouldn't work. So then when this property came up for sale, we conferred with them again, and they said that would be an excellent spot to have it. So that's when we got into negotiations.
Thank you, Mark.
Yep.
Heather or John, you can take it away and I will work the slides for you if that works.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. And thank you for having us here tonight. I just have a couple of slides. As Jenny said, I'm going to focus on a little bit more of the technical aspects of the bond issue. I believe she had introduced us earlier, but my name is Heather Casperson. My colleague, John Burmeister, we are with PFM Financial Advisors as the municipal advisor to the city in going through this process and potentially selling bonds. So what is proposed and what this public hearing is about are what's called general obligation abatement bonds. And I wanted to provide the authorization. So the city is authorized by Minnesota statutes, the chapter 469.1812 through chapter 469.1815. And that provides the authority to issue abatement bonds for various purposes, which includes the acquisition of land. As Jenny already mentioned, and as the public hearing has already been opened, a public hearing is a requirement for selling bonds under this authority. There's also a maximum term limit for the amortization of these bonds. So if the city council approves to move forward, the maximum term would be 15 years that these bonds could be. They could be shorter as well, but that is the longest they could be. And then there's also a restriction. So in the abatement statute, there is a requirement that for your annual debt service, so your annual payments of principal and interest of all the abatement bonds which are outstanding. And I will just mention that there are no more abatement bonds outstanding. For any folks have been around since 2013 in the city, there was an abatement, a similar abatement bond utilized to do some improvements to the community center. So those payments are now, the last payment was made earlier this year. So if the city moves forward, these will be the only abatement bonds that will be have debt service restricted to either 10% of the city's net tax capacity or $200,000, whichever is greater. So on the next slide, you'll have seen in the notice for the public hearing tonight that there are some parcels identified, which will also be included in the resolution. And that is part of the process for abatement bonds. Those parcels of property, the total amount of their real estate taxes will equal the amount of the maximum annual principal amount that's being paid over the life of these bonds. Now, that does not mean that there is anything specifically occurring with those property owners. It is just that they have been identified to come up to the dollar amount needed for this authorization. So these abatement bonds, as I've already mentioned, can be issued as general obligations of the city, which means the city's full faith and credit will be pledged, also called an ad valorem tax pledge. And if we move to the last slide then, so when the city issues general obligation bonds, which these would be general obligation abatement bonds, the levy, the resolution would include a levy which would have the ad valorem property tax be repaid on all taxable property within the city, not just those parcels identified.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate that information. So now I will refer the council to those who have signed up to start for the public hearing, and then we'll go from there.
Correct.
First on our list is Bob Thier.
I signed up in there.
Okay. Okay, no comment for Bob, not a problem. Next we have Kent Wilkening.
Good evening. So it sounds like you have a purchase order already signed for this property. I think this would have been something that the voters in this community should have had a say in. I'm not sure if we can go out and get try and get a reverse referendum on this, you know, to have the voters have a say. I think if we get what 10% of the last election, if we can get 10% sign a petition, I think we can bring this to a reverse referendum. Is that possible?
I'm going to defer to Heather or John. I know some bond authorities allow that, some don't. So if you happen to know, that'd be great.
Yeah, the abatement bonds, the public hearing that's being conducted right now is not subject to reverse referendum. I will say that following this public hearing, there is going to be a public hearing on capital improvement plan bonds. Those bonds are subject to what you're describing as the reverse referendum. There's a 30-day period for which, if I believe it is only 5% of the voters in the last general election, if a petition is put forward with that amount of signatures for the next public hearing, the capital improvement plan bond, then that one would be subject to reverse referendum.
Okay, is there, you know, what your interest rate is going to be on any of this money?
John or Heather, do you happen to know offhand?
I haven't looked at it lately, but I would say it's probably less than like 350-ish, 3.5%. Heather, does that sound accurate with what you've seen? So I'd say around 3.5%.
Yeah, and he's providing a combined for both. So as Jenny mentioned, since the city is considering with this land acquisition, not retaining all of that land, we on one of her slides, it talked about that there'll be a taxable series of bonds and a tax exempt series of bonds. So the taxable series of bonds are a little bit more expensive than the tax exempt, but we're looking at this together. So the rate was for together. Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
I really don't have a whole lot of other questions, just the fact that you'll find nobody that's a huger supporter of law enforcement, fire, EMS. I was in 42 years in law enforcement myself. I will question a little bit on the location, just with my experience, and you know that purchasing the land is one thing, putting up a public safety building. I'm not sure if you got estimates on that, but I don't know that you'll touch it for 10 million, maybe even higher. If you're talking about a water plant, I've heard, you know, and you go by what rumors are or whatever, you're talking to do that $40 million, you won't touch it for 40 million either. I think before anything is done with a water plant, I think that needs to go to the citizens and see how many actually want this. If this is just for new development, that's fine, but don't put it on my taxes and try and push it out if it's something that I really don't want. Because I have heard some people say that they don't want, you know, the city to have a water plant. And with that, it's going to mean more employees. You're going to have somebody certified to run that water plant if you're going to chlorinate the water. So that's more employees that are going to have to be trained. Like I said, I sounds like this is pretty much a done deal. I just hope that whatever you guys do, you bring it back to the people that put you in those seats. Because if you don't, you might not be in those seats much longer. Because, you know, the people that are paying the taxes, I think, you know, we do elect you to do a job, but when you're talking this kind of money and raising the property taxes, you know, right now you're not to exceed is what, 16.11. That's pretty high, you know, and like I said, I worked with budgets for 30 years. The last 15 years, I was told to keep a 0%, no increase, which I did. And I was here a couple years ago, last year and the year before, asking the same questions. Keep it at a 0% if you can. I understand you can't do anything about wages, you know, on union contracts. That's out of your hands. But things like this, that's things that you guys all can control. And I think sometimes you just have to listen to your citizens and ask what they want also. Thank you.
Mayor Ryan, we don't have any other signed up. You could offer one more opportunity if there's comment.
Is there anyone else that wants to come up at this time? Okay. Oh, please do.
You could state your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Gregory Cameron. I live at 4513 Lowland Lane in Nisswa. My family's owned property in the city since 1968. Typically, when people hear water tower, water treatment plant, the first thing that comes to my mind, I am a building contractor. The first thing that comes to my mind is city-sized lots. And if I'm not mistaken, currently to have a septic system and a well on a lot, I believe is a minimum 1.5 acres. Is that correct, Jenny?
I don't know offhand.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
But I have seen developments that do have well and septic. I've never seen one smaller than 1.5 acres. And I think with having a water tower or a water treatment plant, or the only way that really makes sense is to have city-sized lots. And I don't believe that would totally change the character of the city from a small town to either a small city or a bedroom community for Brainerd Baxter. And as the previous speaker mentioned, that's something that I think if you put it to a vote of the citizens, I think a vast majority would be opposed to having a water treatment plant. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Yes. Sure. Come on up.
My name's Bruce Imholt. I'm at 25648 Wooddale Road. My wife and I just moved to Nisswa from Detroit Lakes. We picked Nisswa particularly because we like the community here. We think it's a dynamic community, and we were happy to move here. I guess I would probably comment on the water plant. We were disappointed to hear that we could not have city water when we were here. We were happy to have city sewer, but since we were in town, we didn't have city water. The lot we lived on in Detroit Lakes was an acre lot. When we bought that in 1982, we didn't have city sewer or water. We were able to get that, and we were very pleased to be able to have city sewer. I just think it's a lot easier. The other thing I would tell you about your building, where you're building in Detroit Lakes, we built a new police department. We went for a sales tax. We expected it to be 8 to 9 years to pay that off. It's paid off in 4 years. So I would encourage you, if you're looking to build some of these, if you can get the authority from the state, it does have to go to a vote of the people. But the sales tax to me was a fantastic way to build a facility, because Detroit Lakes is like Nisswa. We get a lot of people in the community that are seasonal, that are tourists, and you're providing service to those folks. And to be able to have the sales tax rather than the property tax to pay for it, I think is a great way to go. So I commend you, by the way, for looking ahead. I was on the city council for 20 years in Detroit Lakes. This is exactly the type of thing that I commend the council and staff for looking at.
Thank you.
In case people don't know, there is a moratorium in the state on local sales tax right now,
Hopefully it comes off this year.
because that's one of the things we were contemplating doing.
There's not anyone else. We'll close public comment. And
You can have a motion to close public comment, please.
can I get a motion? Yes, close public hearing.
I say move.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did we lose Joe?
Nope, I believe he's still here, so.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yes, so now the council can discuss, and certainly if you have questions, and ultimately, proceed with a motion.
Okay.
Either way.
Joe?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, did you want to, we're at our council discussion phase. Did you want to go first? Since you're,
Yeah, I don't, on this motion, I don't have really any discussion right now.
Jesse?
It's tough to look ahead and be able to plan out the future, but I think we all in this room see the demographics of the city changing many of us born and raised in this community. It's a difficult decision to be able to plan ahead. Whether it's 5 years or 30 years, those are going to be many council members that are going to be here after us, whether any of us are reelected or we are not. We want to try to set up the future for the city to be able to succeed, and ultimately, we believe that this is a path forward to be able to get the infrastructure to properly accommodate what the community's needs are. Response times, and speaking with many on the fire and the police, but specifically the fire, you have major events that are in this downtown community that are very bustling. It's difficult, not just on those specific weekend events, but for us to be able to plan ahead and have response times in the event that there's incidents or major accidents that can be potentially death on Highway 371 corridor. Just on the previous meeting we had, this is going to open up a better opportunity. City water, larger projects like that, those are larger projects that are still up for large discussions before we make any sort of movement on that. But this was the best opportunity that the city was presented. And with that, I think we spent a lot of time deliberating what's the best step and what's the right move forward. So that's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Bruce? Brian? Mark? Okay. I have to agree with what Jesse said. City water is, it's just, if and when it ever happens, that's where we need to put it. It's there. If it ever has to happen. It's definitely not something that that we haven't had a down to, I mean, it's beyond 30,000 foot view at this point. It's high up there, but there's been comments, just so everyone's aware, from 2017, 18, 19, myself and a previous council member had meetings with various contractors, developers, landowners in the city. And that was one of the things that they said to us, with some of the development that they're thinking they may want to do at some point in time. It's going to require fire suppression systems inside. To do that on an underground storage tank, possible, but they have said it's just not, it's not economically feasible as much so of having city water, but not that to do, that's not the reason to build it. Okay. But so listening to those kinds of comments and it was one of the things that, led us from the city council from 2016, 17 on, if it ever happened, where would it go? That's the spot it needs to go. Since the land's available and we're looking at the fire or public safety buildings, again, to Jesse's point, thinking down the road, 20, 30 years, where is it at? I don't know what the future councils or the future people of the community want, but at least you got what you need if you need it. So and it is expensive, I understand. But like so many other parts of the infrastructure, and I know it'll happen at the infrastructure meeting with the community, with the Public Works Committee, you'll find that there's been a lot of, in discussing this with people downtown, business owners, landowners, there's a lot of infrastructure that the city over the years probably, or they should have put in, that they didn't put in. So you got to think that down the road, and it's hard, and I understand that. So, but definitely something that the community has to have a say in before you even approach the idea of putting up a water tower. But that's not even on my horizon, so I don't see it happening, at any time in the near future, personally. So, but that's my 2 cents anyway. So, so the next item on it is to call for a council motion. So where am I at here? There we are. So what's our pleasure, gentlemen? I'll entertain.
Is this a typical motion or is this a roll call?
It'll be a roll call motion, but
It'll be a roll call, but it's a motion if the council's inclined. Basically, you can just read off item number 1, a resolution approving property tax abatements, if that's the direction you'd like to go. So we need a motion and a second, and then we'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve property tax abatements as presented.
I'll second it.
any further discussion? Then we'll do a roll call vote.
Yes.
All those in favor?
No, so you need to
Oh,
ask each
Councilman,
person.
excuse me,
Yes.
Councilman Fraley,
Aye.
Councilman London,
Aye.
Councilman Jesse, sorry, Zahn,
Aye.
Councilman Hall, Joe? Did we lose him?
Can you hear me?
There we go. Now we got you.
Can you hear me?
Yep. We have the motion and a second.
Oh, we just lost him.
Okay. Well.
Technology.
Yep. Great.
Now I'm looking at Tom. Procedurally, do we just proceed with mayor's vote and, or should we just give him a minute? Okay, okay, great.
Anybody here know how to operate a telegraph? I don't know.
I know Morse code. I can send that. Jesse, give him.
Is he available, Kiki, or? Yeah.
Probably get a text out there, but not a phone call, service is probably pretty bad.
Yeah. So. Can you hear us, Joe? Murphy's Law.
Kind of.
Can we hear you now?
Hear you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah. Oh,
Can you hear me?
yep, we can.
Yeah, sorry.
You want to just ask if what his vote is?
What is your vote, Joe?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Great.
All right. And I am also a yes vote. Is he trying to say something?
So motion carries.
Okay, so motion carried. All right. Next item on the agenda is public hearing for a capital improvement, excuse me. Capital improvement plan bond. So I will make if somebody could make a motion to, we need to open a public hearing on that one as well.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to open the public hearing on the capital improvement plan bonds as presented.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Again, presentation by staff and consultant.
Okay. Thank you. We will get to the second one. Oh, let me just scroll through quick. I have a few less slides for this project. Okay. So now we will be discussing the 2024 capital improvement plan bond. Again, I will provide a project summary, and then Heather from PFM will provide some of that technical overview information for the public. So this bond is specifically relating to improvements that are needed here at City Hall. City Hall was built in 2005, so that is almost 20 years old now. And as part of that strategic plan that I mentioned earlier, staff has been working to complete assessments across all of our city buildings to determine, remaining useful life for much of the components that you would need to maintain a building. So back again in 2021, another thing that we did was we had Widseth complete a City Hall facility report. And a part of that report included identifying any deficiencies that existed in our facility at City Hall. So they looked at the exterior envelope of the building and the property, interior conditions. We looked at building code and accessibility. We did a site review and assessed mechanical and electrical systems, along with access control, kind of cameras, electronic control improvements that might be needed. We left that kind of sit, and staff gave it some time, meaning kind of another 1.5 or 2 years to think about that. So did the council. And in 2023, the subject was reinitiated, and the council discussed some ideas on what types of improvements would make the most sense for City Hall. And we talked about a lot of different options. We talked about accessibility and security. We talked about exterior needs, interior needs. We even talked about potentially expanding the building for different uses that we were experiencing or wanting to brainstorm. So really, I think, kind of covered the spectrum on let's throw all those ideas out there and then see where we landed. At the time, we really didn't land on anything specific, and nothing really felt like that was the right answer. And so we let that sit again for another winter season. And in spring of 2024, the staff re-engaged that conversation, mostly from the perspective of the exterior building issues. The primary one being we have a leaky roof. We've had it pretty much since the building was constructed. It's been an ongoing challenge. And pretty much have troubleshooted any which way we can to repair it. We need to come up with a new solution in order to eliminate the problem. The city applied for it with the council's approval and received a $50,000 grant from Sourcewell to help with these building improvements, which is wonderful. And the council then directed staff to review and assess all of those initial ideas and thoughts that we had for the last couple of years to come up with a final list of recommendations. And so staff brought these recommendations forward to the council, essentially saying that the exterior issues are the highest priority. Keep the internal flow of the building as it is for now. If it's in repair, fix it correctly. So if for some reason, let's say something doesn't meet current accessibility standards now that maybe weren't in place 20 years ago, like we need to address that and make sure that it's meeting all of those standards. If it's part of something that needs to be repaired, and then also look at access control and cameras. The council approved those recommendations and also established a building committee. We are utilizing the Gordian contract through Sourcewell in partnership with Widseth, and that allows us to directly contract with a contractor that has already preset determined pricing. It's met the state bid contract requirements and provides some efficiency within that overall project. The council also directed that we work with Widseth to develop recommendations for the contractor that is to be selected and the timeline, which is included in our packet for later on under new business for council to approve that. The scope of the project here is identified and an estimated cost of about $500,000. Essentially, most of these items are related to exterior components of the building, replacing damaged concrete, tuck pointing exterior masonry, addressing the roof issues, items 3 and 4, replacing exterior windows. We have windows that are inoperable now. They're letting in the elements from the outside into the building, and so we want to make sure that we're addressing that. Repairing any interior finishes, again, as long as if it's tied to a correction with an exterior component, we want to make sure that's a fully kind of completed thought and make sure that that all ties together well. And also correct a couple of exhaust fan thermostat issues and ventilation issues we have in the building. Primarily very focused on the exterior integrity of the building to keep it functioning and working for the city here for hopefully many years. So with that, I will turn it over to Heather in a moment, but following that will be then the council's opportunity to approve the resolution to give preliminary approval to the issuance of general obligation capital improvement plan bonds in an amount not to exceed $550,000 and adopting the City of Nisswa capital improvement plan that's been included in your packet for the years 2024 through 2028. Just to address the $550,000, it's the estimate cost of $500,000 for the repairs, and then again the bond issuance costs and some of the consultant fees, working with Widseth, architectural, that kind of thing, that we would recoup our out-of-pocket costs as part of that, not to exceed the $550,000. And with that, I will turn it over to Heather.
Thank you, Jenny, Mayor, and members of the City Council. So I'm going to have the same overview of this general obligation, what's called Capital Improvement Plan bonds, also known as CIP bonds. So the city is authorized to issue Capital Improvement Plan bonds through the city Minnesota Statutes, Chapter 475, Spot 521, and that allows for various purposes, which includes improvements to its city hall. Similar to the abatement bonds, a public hearing is also required in advance of selling any bonds under this bond authority. And as Jenny mentioned, the city must create and adopt a capital improvement plan, which covers at least a 5-year period. So similar to the abatement bonds, general obligation capital improvement plan bonds also have a cap as written in statute. The maximum amount of all outstanding CIP bonds in any year, that is the principal and interest payments, they should not exceed 0.16%, again, of the estimated market value of the property within the city. So from the county auditor's office, we've received an amount for your estimated market value is currently at the $1,228,082,400. Sorry, it's a very long number to speak in words. So the 0.16%, which is the amount which your debt service cannot exceed in any year, is roughly $1.9 million. The projected debt service on these proposed capital improvement plan bonds are estimated to be about $245,000, and you have some similar CIP bonds outstanding, but together those will still be very much under the limitation that's allowed by Minnesota statutes. And then these bonds also have the ability as general obligation bonds to levy by resolution a general ad valorem tax, which is going to be on all taxable property within the city to repay any bonds issued of this type.
Thank you, Heather. I will include the council action on the screen, but then we can open it up to public comment.
So we'll open it up to public comment at this time. Jenny, you have a list there?
I do. I have one name, Kent Wilkening.
I think I saw him walk out.
Oh, okay.
No.
That is all on the list. If you'd like to call for
Is there
any.
anyone else that that didn't get a chance to get on the list that would like to approach or address? So we are currently open for public comment on our general obligation bond. If there's anyone that wishes to address it at this point, they've certainly not. Okay. Seeing none, we can close public comment. Can I get a motion to then close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Council discussion. Jesse?
I have none.
Mark? Joe?
I have none. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that earlier. It just fluked out at the bad time.
Okay. Technology, man. Okay, I have nothing at this time myself, so I would entertain a roll call vote.
First, we need a motion to approve the resolution, so you can read from the agenda if that's helpful.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution giving preliminary approval to the issuance of the general obligation capital improvement plan bonds in an amount not to exceed $550,000, adopting the city of Nisswa, Minnesota capital improvement plan for the years 2024 through 2028.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's all right, it's all right.
You gotta go.
All
Roll
those in
call.
favor, we're going to do a roll call vote. Councilman Fraley,
Aye.
Councilman London,
Aye.
Councilman Zahn,
Aye.
Councilman Hall,
Aye.
and myself, aye. Unanimous.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, John and Heather. Appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is cannabis THC ordinance drafts. This is council information.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. This is council information. However, we have a few things to get some council feedback and certainly feedback from the public as well, as these are clearly drafts and staff wants to get some council feedback and input before we work to finalize the drafts that we will present to the Planning Commission for public hearing in November. And so I will highlight a few sections specifically that I am looking for. Did I miss something? Okay. Council feedback on. First, let me just note that there are two ordinance drafts. One is specific to cannabis and one is specific for THC. We will probably seek feedback from our city attorney on if it makes sense to combine them, kind of section 1, section 2, or if we should leave them separate. For now, they're separate. But they're the model ordinances that came from the Office of Cannabis Management, working to modify them to meet the city of Nisswa's needs. I want to highlight for the council, section 3, page 7, outlines on the cannabis ordinance, outlines the minimum buffer requirements. So there are some buffer requirements for where we would prohibit the operation of businesses from a school, from a daycare, residential treatment facility, public park, and another cannabis retail business. Certainly those buffer requirements are up for council discussion. If you'd like those changed at all, any feedback on that would be helpful. Mayor Ryan, would you like me to pause after each one, or do you like me to go through? I just have a list of about a half a dozen things. That's up to.
I just had a question on the buffering. You know, we have 1,000 feet from a school, but only 500 feet from a daycare. Why the difference?
That was in the model ordinance. I just left that as is. I think can certainly be adjusted if you would like.
I would like to see it 1,000 feet from a daycare. I'd like to see it 1,000 feet from where kids would be anywhere.
This might be statutory.
Yeah, I think the school is statutory, said, but I would like to see it 1,000 feet from a daycare. That's my opinion.
So long.
You know how I stand on this anyway, so.
Yeah, so long as we're not restricted by statutory, you would like to see the increase in
Right.
buffer, okay?
And I know some municipalities, their ordinance went in and the state had issue with some of the things, so I just want to see if that will fly.
I guess on distances, then maybe we should find out what we can do.
Right.
I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying at all, but at the same time, based on how our business district, like the highway business district is currently set up, I could see where that might end up being conflicting, where we might be, I don't know. So maybe we should find out what we can do with distances, or are we, like Tom is saying, are we stuck with the distance?
Sure.
If anyone knows that. Looks like somebody does.
Yeah, so the Office of Cannabis Management has a couple ranges for certain items. For the cannabis business buffer, we can be within 0 to 1,000 feet of a school. 0 to 500 feet from a daycare, 0 to 500 feet from a residential treatment facility, 0 to 500 feet from an attraction within a public park that is regularly used by minors, including a playground or athletic field. And then we also have the option to prohibit and implement a buffer between another cannabis business if we have one already, for example, like 1,000 feet as we're recommending
So statutorily, this is all we can do.
from the Office of Cannabis Management, yes.
Is that their recommendation or is that actually statutory?
I believe it is statutory.
It sounds like it is. I'm guessing if it was in the model ordinance, that's probably the maximum we can allow.
Mhm.
Like everything else with this, we won't find out until January.
Does anyone have any other questions on this item for the city administrator?
Maybe I just have one question. Maybe with these distances, could we look at some sort of overlay of mapping so we can see what really that 1,000 feet covers?
I think that's possible, yeah. We can probably work with, I think, maybe with Seth on some GIS buffering tools, if we can get some addresses for things like daycares that are registered with the Minnesota Department of Health, and then come up with a rough map.
Yeah, because I'd like to see it also the maximum distance from all those things.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yeah.
We can get that back and. Pretty great.
Yeah.
In fact, if we can get it sooner.
I believe this is the maximum, so I think we'll work with this unless we find otherwise, we'll bring that back to the council. But then having that map, we can at least have information about where some of those types of operations are. Great. The next section just below that reflects zoning and land use for cannabis businesses specifically. We've identified highway business as the zoning that would allow through a conditional use permit process to operate in that zone. Any feedback or adjustments are welcome.
I agree with that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. The next section, section 3, page 8, hours of operation, just provided some framework. I have to keep track of what page I am on.
3.3.
Aren't
Yes,
some,
hours of operation, yes.
aren't most of the hours of operation set by the state? Didn't they have their guidelines set?
There are guidelines. I left that in the packet in italics.
Right.
I think you can be more restrictive if you would like, from my understanding. So I proposed something not quite as extensive to selling till 2 a.m., ending that at essentially 10 p.m. every day is the proposed. But certainly council feedback if you'd like that to better match the state or something different.
This is coinciding with spirits, for example, these hours, I would say.
Not specific to THC, so we'll get to THC. This is full cannabis licenses,
Mhm.
so those products, right, wouldn't be.
Yes. Are the hours similar to that of spirits?
Yes, and
except
yeah,
for
with
the
the exception of
exception
Sunday.
Sunday is 10,
10
Sunday is
six.
10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yeah.
That's good. But
No.
11 to 6.
11 to 6, okay.
After church. Uh-huh. I would be more in line to try to align. I would be more in favor in trying to get these hours aligned with what we have for our municipal liquor operations.
Mhm.
I'm not even gonna be able to provide more of a context to that. Just more than personal preference, especially looking at these hours that could go into 1 a.m., 2 a.m. That is ludicrous.
I have the same thoughts too.
Recommendation is 10 p.m.
Correct, but on Sunday, I
Sunday,
think,
you could limit that more.
yes,
Okay,
Sunday. can be-
11 a.m. to 6 p.m. proposed on Sunday is my recommendation.
okay.
No, they
I
can
would,
be on
one,
1 hour.
one thing with that though. Oh,
But-
one thing with the time though, I would also align it you know, let's say it was able to be in the downtown area, with our setbacks, I would more inline it with current downtown business hours also. If it was, you know, so maybe different hours of operation within different business districts of the city, I guess I'd be in favor of looking at something like that.
The current draft doesn't allow it in downtown at all. It's only highway business
Okay,
For full cannabis,
for the cannabis.
not for THC.
Correct.
correct.
And yes, our THC draft does reflect being able to sell consistent with the business's normal hours of operation. I figured that would be fair and reasonable.
Right.
So hopefully that helps. Yes. Okay.
Excuse me.
The next item is,
One quick,
yes, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
there's certain hours of operation, certain times of year by state, that, like, I believe it's Christmas Eve, you gotta close at a certain time. They would be restricted to those two then. We restrict, I mean, if the pickle factory, for example, we can't, the bar has to close by 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve, then would the same be true? Could we make the same thing true on those days that they're limited in operation?
I think that would be implied that you have to follow state law for things like that. Looking at
Is that
Tom to
statute?
say with that.
But are they saying that that's what it is?
Mm-mm. I couldn't find it in there.
I just don't know offhand if our liquor ordinance states that specifically, but we can add, I guess we can just also add it or as required by law.
Can we find that out and see if we can make sure we can?
Yep,
I
yep.
mean,
That'd be sensible.
Yeah, well, it makes sense.
Right.
If I can't serve a beer after a certain time, then why would I want people buying marijuana? I mean, it's still the same thing.
Sure, okay,
Agreed.
great, okay. Then the next section I have for you, section 4, page 9, temporary cannabis events. We would like to add setback requirements consistent with the ordinance, so that if there are temporary cannabis events, that they would be restricted similar to the restrictions that are in place with the schools, daycares, et cetera. So we would specify that in here, so we will add that component. And we also noted in here that temporary cannabis events shall only be held on private property. Would like council feedback, consideration for, sometimes there are, I think, temporary cannabis events, renting out either a city facility, the park, using a street for some kind of event. This is noted at this point that it would only be allowed on private property with the consent of the property owner. Council can choose to adjust that.
Cannabis event.
I don't really know, Mark, so I'm not sure, but
I've seen some.
yes.
I'm just saying, I don't
So-
want cannabis events in
I guess I have one thought on that as I was reading through this too. Also, just like with any other temporary events in the city, we can require, I would think, temporary use permits, you know, peddling license, you know, something along that, along with a fee associated to that event. And could we not make the fee $5,000, $10,000 for the licensure for the temporary event? Is that doable?
Typically, the fee needs to be kind of relative to the type of event, so you can't just place an exorbitant fee. That's not, you know, consistent with a temporary liquor license or something similar to that. So, but yes, we could certainly add that to our city permits, and the council could decide if you wanted to allow it or not, depending on the circumstance. We could add that to any one of our existing forms, yes, if you wanted to potentially.
Yeah, fee aside, I definitely think that we want that additional paperwork done if something like this is going to happen.
So I think the question is, does the council want to leave this as it's on private property only, or would you like that option that would just be reviewed by the council if someone were to apply?
I would like it reviewed by the council.
You're gonna have
You-
to allow them having them at private property period is fine, but can we put limitations like the distances again? I mean, you don't want, private property could be.
Right next to the school, right next to daycare.
We will add the setbacks, yes, we will add the setbacks, but
But even if it's on private property, our ordinance still dictate a lot of these fees and special licenses to even run an event on private property.
Yeah. Mr. City Attorney, do we run the risk of potential discrimination pursuits for discriminating cannabis versus what we're already approving for liquor uses on any permit basis within the city?
Are you talking about
In regards to specifically,
fees higher? Is that what you're asking, Jesse?
well, that, for example, being one, but additionally, if we're gonna give a certain treatment to a liquor, an event that has a liquor license or a temporary one posted for, do we run the risk on the same thing with cannabis if we're being somewhat discriminatory towards them?
Or would be, yeah, or would be so.
Is there any risk?
Well, we have to see what the read of the final, what the final draft looks like. But if you're, for instance, if you're talking about tying higher fees to these sorts of events than you would for a liquor event, then that's a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem. Those fees really have to be tied to the administrative costs of administering the permit.
Is there anything else above and beyond just those fees that we need to be fair and equitable across the board?
I think you're in uncharted territory. I don't know what municipalities are gonna try to do with these things along that line. I expect that it's like with any new set of laws and administration of those laws will come lawsuits over things like that.
Right.
It's untested.
In different cities, that'll then be implemented here.
Yeah.
Right.
Guess I just don't recommend doing something that would appear to be punitive. Yeah.
Well, we gotta make sure that it's enforceable. I mean.
Right.
I mean, like our old policy where you couldn't park on a city street unless it was a good, how do you enforce it?
Mm-hmm.
okay, just a couple more. There's a few references in the cannabis ordinance referencing low potency edibles. We will move those to the THC draft just to clarify that portion of it. And then with respect to the THC draft, just a note for the council, section A, which is page 4, item number 2. The setback here is located, is identified to a business located within 300 feet of any public or private elementary, middle, or high school. That's the same as our liquor ordinance. So that was trying to be consistent with that potential, is to say, let's make that setback the same. So certainly feedback if you have it, but that was the rationale for that one. We will add, as mentioned, that THC sales are restricted to the same hours as the business's normal hours of operation. And we would add to the language that the THC license from the city would require a license from the Office of Cannabis Management first. So they could obtain that license and then come to the city for approval for the THC license.
And there's one license permitted per town of population 12,500 and under
For cannabis,
cannabis.
not for THC.
THC is open to anybody,
Gotcha.
Correct. Yes.
but it's the cannabis. I mean, basically it's the same thing. But so if you want to sell your flower and smoke it, got to have your permit, and that's for every 12,500 people. THC, gummies, that kind of stuff, infusions, no.
But we have to allow, if a business wants to come in and they meet all of our requirements and everything, and they want to produce, basically grow it, we have to allow one of them.
We have to designate where we
Yes.
will allow it.
And we also have to allow at least one.
Retail business,
Right.
yes.
And we don't
Yes.
have a choice in that. The state
No.
dictated that.
Well, the hope is that the county will get all their permits out and there won't be any left for us.
Well, okay.
I'm just
So
saying.
I know. Also with respect to zoning, we have identified highway business and central business districts for THC. That's
Mhm.
certainly, if you have feedback on that.
And we have that set up to be in locked cabinets. I can't.
Yes, for edibles, they are required by state law to
Be in
be
the
in a
locked
locked
cabinets, right.
cabinet behind the counter type of a thing. Yes,
Right.
yes.
And I think the age, what is it, 21?
21.
And, okay, that'll be interesting.
Thank you, Stephen, for helping me with that. I don't know if council has more questions. You might have questions from the public if they have comments on the ordinance.
We'll have some rezoning requests come through, I'm sure, in the next couple of years, won't we, Steve?
Maybe.
Is there anyone in the public, in the audience that wants to address it?
Well, could I just add some things?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, so, I mean, the whole thing about this. You're getting a whole new type of person that buys this. People that don't drink, you've got a whole, they still want to be part of the party. Okay? So you've been, I'm sure a lot of people have been stoned before, whatever. There's gonna be less people killed drinking this than drinking alcohol. You know what I'm saying? Alcohol is still the most dangerous drug out there. By far. So all that we're doing or trying to do is just make the city more money. That's all we're doing by applying for this. Like there's some cities that are like Holdingford, for example, they charge their municipal $10,000 for a THC license to have that, to sell that product in their off sale. Now, the reason the city did that was to prove a point that the city's gonna make a lot of money selling this product. But it also defers other people, let's say Schaefer's or somewhere else, for applying for that license. Cause it's gonna, you know, that's 10 grand's a lot of money. So, and we're gonna have to do our due diligence too, as a city, to figure out what that price is gonna be. So. That's the whole thing with this THC deal. So, but the dispensary, you're right, 12,500 people. Brainerd's probably gonna get it. Who knows? I don't know. So. That's what I know about it, so.
So this isn't discussing us.
This is discussion. I appreciate council feedback. Maybe just want to take one more opportunity to make sure there's no other public feedback. For the public's awareness, we will update the drafts and they will be presented to the Planning Commission since a lot of this impacts our Chapter 20 land use ordinance. Stephen will update the land use charts to incorporate these new uses. That will be, when is your commission meeting date? Remind me.
November 6th.
November 6th, thank you. That will occur on November 6th. And then if the Planning Commission approves the drafts, or even if they modify them in some way, then that will come to the City Council in November for final adoption effective January 1, 25. So there's more time for the public to review this. Any other feedback that comes your way, feel free to share it with staff and we will work to update that.
You know, we've discussed this at the council level multiple times about what do we want to sell? Do we want to, so there's the moratorium. At the liquor store, do we want to sell infused things? What are we going to do? When do we want to have that final determination? Is that in November?
Well,
Sorry, go ahead.
Didn't Brian already come up and we discussed that if he wanted to go for the permit to go for it?
Yes, the council noted to our liquor managers that if they would like to apply for the permit, they should bring that application to the city council to approve, and then at least then they have the permit.
Right.
But the question still comes to the council, I think, do you want to allow that to be sold in our liquor stores? And I think that's a great conversation to have in November with the ordinance.
And I would encourage council members, ask the liquor store managers to call them and get their input.
Yeah, I want their input.
Get their input, throw out your idea. If you got concerns or questions, let them know what they are. They're looking into this stuff from other stores all around the state. Let's get their input. That's what they do. So yeah, they know.
I thought Brian gave us some good input last
He did,
time in
he did.
regards to what the nets, or excuse me, what the gross revenues are gonna be versus the net profits. It's like, looking at data from these other munis, it's not moving my proverbial needle of saying absolutely, we must go on that. That is a hot trend. It's gonna be able to be a killer for us. It was not something to that effect for me. but I want to be considerate of those in the community, and I know that we have a very traditional community here, family sense. I hope the days are still there where kindergartners, well, probably too young, but fourth, fifth graders from Nisswa used to be able to walk across the street to go play it, broom ball or pond hockey, like I did when I was a young man growing up. And we never saw that around town. We never had to go through really any sort of phase where there was drugs or even alcohol or people of threat in town. Want to make sure that we're getting enough good feedback from the community to be considerate of them and what they like.
Used to be able to do in Brainerd too. South end to the north end, it wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. You need anything else from us? Okay. Next item on our agenda, accept Gull Lake Trail final cost split between Gull and Shore.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept the Gull Lake Trail final cost split between Nisswa and Lake Shore as presented.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Recommendation from the building committee reference contractor selection.
Oh, you missed one. Number 5.
Parks thing,
Oh.
Parks Commission.
I'll make a motion.
Got that mixed up, sorry. Okay, that's good. Thanks. Okay.
No problem. I'll try to be brief here. You have a recommendation from the Park and Rec Commission regarding going through an RFQ process to find a vendor for playground. This would tie to getting the plans required to apply for a grant, if and when we have the funding available. So you have the sample RFQ. It's very similar to the Gordian process for the building. The price tag for the playground, we anticipate to need to satisfy the bidding requirements, and this would allow for that.
Amber can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think at the last Park and Recs meeting, we had we broke the record for amount of public attendance.
Yeah, 16.
We were excited. I think.
Huge crowd.
Mhm. Since we've never had anybody at the meetings before anyway, so it was quite interesting. I wish more people would come to meetings.
Entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, also move.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Recommendation from the building committee reference contractor selection.
Thank you. So in your package, you have the 2 proposals that were submitted for our City Hall improvement project, one from High Tech and one from Norson. The building committee met on October 8th to review the submissions received. Ultimately, the committee recommends selecting High Tech Construction. And I think that's all.
I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, also move to accept the recommendation from the building committee for contractor selection, which was High Tech as presented.
I get a second.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Conditions report on the pocket park.
Group effort.
This was a group effort. So you have a memo, with some pictures after our last budget workshop. Tom and I met with, Dave Reese from Widseth as well as Councilmember Hall to discuss the conditions at Pocket Park. So we're just looking for additional information. We do think there's kind of an immediate need, and Tom's had some ideas on how to deal with that. But also looking forward as we engage in the downtown master plan and some of those things, just getting an idea of how we want to move forward, wanting to make sure everyone's on the same page and deal with some of the immediate needs as well as plan for the future.
One thing I would add to it, I had a brief discussion with some of the gentlemen from MnDOT here tonight too, because whenever we do the pocket park was built underneath a MnDOT project when 371 was expanded to 4 lanes, so they're gonna be checking on their end to see what, if anything, if they have any involvement in some of the improvements we need to make, and they'll be getting back to us soon.
The only thing, when I was looking through this, looking at that, I've been down there a number of times looking at the pavers all throughout the whole thing. Would we be potentially better off having, like, say, a poured cement edging and then pavers in the center, you know, kind of, so we don't have the pavers that are all falling off the side the way they do and stuff? Or is that gonna pretty much depend on whatever the wall has to happen? I mean, we're not even close to what.
I'll say that's definitely something Tom and I have looked at. The paver situation, also looking at if the paver should be removed in general and if concrete should be poured in place. So part of that is the drainage system that exists there. They're supposed to be pervious pavers, which they are no longer. And so that would be part of the long range planning if there's an interim solution, but as well as the entire drainage altogether throughout the park.
And that was one of the questions I posed to MnDOT tonight too, was can we modify that underground drainage in any way with any of the improvements we want to make, such as pouring concrete? And so they're gonna get back to us with that.
All right.
I see that you want council motion, but is it?
Well, are you looking specifically at items 1 and 2 to install the no parking signs and add a curb, or what's the short term, like you want the okay now? I think there's a larger planning effort, right, to come sometime in the future.
Or do we want to make a motion to allow them to take whatever remediation needs are necessary for now? Basically what you just.
Well,
I mean,
how open-ended will that be?
well,
Yeah.
cause I'm just, I mean, for
I think they wanna stop
the water.
the damage from continuing, right? That's the goal, is to make sure that that is addressed as they come up with their longer term.
As I
plan.
think with any other city property or building, even a landscape piece like this that can pose a safety risk, as it almost crushed, as you guys were mentioning last meeting when you were out there with, I think, MNDOT, right, when it fell over that wall last time.
Yeah, so I was not there when that happened, but what we have is in particular the wall closest to Big Axe.
Yep.
Traffic likes to drive and park on what is a drainage swale there. Well, that drainage swale is putting pressure on that retaining wall there.
Got it.
It was never meant to withstand that. We had no parking signs in place at one time and they've been removed by various people. That used to be a one-way, the alleys were one-way. We probably need to go back to that. That's part of what's causing the problem and why the no parking signs are
Right.
being removed, is because they're feeling that they don't have enough room to make a corner. Anyway, temporary solution that we have to get us through probably this winter. We talked about possibly getting quotes and fixing that wall yet this fall. I don't know that we're gonna get there, especially when we have to check with MnDOT. It's gonna just take some time to work through this. So what I'm gonna do is probably have our guys, sandbag that for this winter to make it through, so it doesn't wash out completely.
Good.
That will probably act as a curb, having a stack of sandbags there. And then through the winter, we'll be engaging with WIDSET for an actual plan to fix that wall, make it more robust. And so that it works well with the underground drainage if need be, and with whatever requirements MnDOT might have with that. By springtime, we should have a workable project and we'll get quotes for that and hopefully fix that part of it. The remaining parts of it, the handicap pathway, the ramp going down, we'll be working with that some more. And then the remaining walls, I think we're gonna be doing this in stages. Or we might try to work it as a project that we can include probably with the 26 or 27 road bond
Right.
if that's allowed.
So with that curve at your top, hopefully we get enough snow this year where you can pile it up there so they can't park in that area. But this is this is a one-way road, one-way alley. Wasn't that passed by ordinance? Wasn't it stipulated in ordinance that it's a one-way?
Yeah, I believe it's, I don't remember where that one-way distinction came from.
Right.
I think it was just painted that way back when I started, way before me probably. But, whether it's because it was repaved or whatever, the markings that made it a one-way have disappeared. And people started to use it as a two-way, and people really like to park in the shoulder around Big Axe.
Yep.
One of the reasons we had put the no parking signs there is trying to keep try to keep the alley open for truck traffic, for deliveries and such. It's a challenge.
Okay.
I think what we would like to do though is reestablish the one-way.
Okay. So you want a motion to accept what they're asking for, or do we just?
You even need a motion for that?
I think at this point, it's just information. We don't really need.
Yeah, it's just
anything.
information.
It does. I think though, if you, from the alley, if the one way, if you want to implement that, I think that would be appropriate for the council
okay.
to authorize that, because then staff has the authority to say that was approved. But the rest of it, yes, is pretty informal.
I have one more. Amber, would you be under the opinion that piece of that pocket park, especially the ramp going up to downtown, is part of the trail? And if you did, any leftover excess funds, would that be able to be applied to this piece to be able to get it back in repair? You can come back to us.
I don't believe there's excess funds. Can definitely look
Contingencies.
into that. It is a transitional
But
zone.
we have contingencies in this for the trail.
We look at it a lot from both the park lens as well as the public works lens. It's very much a joint
Oh, yeah.
effort of I can pull a little from here, public works can pull a little from this and that, and trying to pool enough to make it happen. But yeah, there's definitely other avenues hopefully that we can pursue, but yeah, it's probably, as Councilmember Hall said, it could be a very hefty project, and it's something that the Parks Plan calls for planning for infrastructure replacement on.
I would say the DNR approval did not include pocket park, so we'd probably have to go back to them if there were money left over, but we can keep that in the back of our mind, for sure.
One idea we had, just talking about it a little bit more, and this is by no means committing to this, but just a question probably more than anything. As you know, we've put aside some money to match state and county projects. This was originally a joint project. You could consider possibly using some of that.
Okay.
Great idea, yeah.
So if we want to give them the authority to make it a one-way, do we need to do that by ordinance, Tom?
No.
Okay.
Just by motion.
Well, I will entertain that motion.
I will so move.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Planning and zoning request reference SSTS ordinance amendments.
Good evening again. So my first item here of two here would be to address the SSTS setbacks. Currently, table 20-18 shows lot line setbacks of ranging from 15 feet up to 30 feet in different districts, which can be kind of confusing for property owners, licensed individuals such as designers, installers, and inspectors in our municipality. Currently, code 7080.2150 pertains directly to property line setbacks in code. It would be my recommendation to bring this open for public hearing at November 6th Planning Commission meeting to reduce it to the code minimum of 10 feet. To again, kind of make it consistent across the board. Licensed individuals don't need to wonder what property zoning they're currently standing on in order to make that call. In the permitting process, we would just be looking for that property line to be staked if they're hugging close to it, or a variance if we're encroaching upon.
Go ahead, if anyone wants to say anything, otherwise I'll make them.
I was not in attendance planning zoning this month, as you know. But one question I had for you, I meant to ask ahead of time, is the proposal from Chris Pence for both this ordinance and your next topic, is that?
So that was an element in the next item, to contract with Chris Pence, under the next business thing. This was one that, would be a more of a sooner introduction as an ordinance amendment.
And it's pretty straightforward, all things considered. Some of the other ones are very complex, right? So we need more time, but this one was a pretty clear discrepancy. And so that's why Stephen wanted to present this to move this one forward faster.
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve the SSTS ordinance amendment as presented.
So it'd be a motion to bring it forward. No, we are not holding public hearing.
Bring
for
it
this right
forward
now,
to the
right?
next planning commission meeting on November 4th,
November 6th.
November 6th.
I'll second it.
Bruce seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Isn't that?
That would be a Wednesday after
Election day's the
election.
5th. Man. It's gonna be Christmas in a week.
And the setback stuff has been pretty. Recommendation from the planning commission, reference ordinance update services.
Yes, so we had reached out to Chris Pence, who had been involved in previous ordinance amendment processes, looking to bring the ordinance revision into the final phase to bring items that the DNR is looking for compliance on, such as FEMA floodplain standards and others, full circle. The other items would be buildable area, driveway side yard setbacks, any input into cannabis, the land use table, getting certain definitions that are in our land use table, defined at the final part of our chapter 20 ordinance. Clarifications on subdivision processes, future status of the planned development district, and a zoning map update perhaps, so. Total cost on Chris's proposal, which is also attached, was proposed at $7,500. It'd be my recommendation to move $7,500 from the professional services fees budgeted to 2024 into the capital reserve to fund the final payment to him.
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to accept the recommendation from the planning commission regarding the ordinance update services as presented.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Next item is resolution for squad car.
Thank you.
purchase. I'll make a motion, and you want to do this, please?
I'll make a motion and accept it. Purchase it.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 11, approved quotes for road work.
I'll make a motion to approve the quotes road work as presented. In the, yeah.
Okay, well, just for clarification, we're looking at Anderson Brothers for
$12,566, yes,
Yeah, the project is already done.
it's done.
Okay,
We have a second?
I second it.
seconded. Any further discussion? All those, excuse me, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 13, accept the notice of retirement for Dallas, Mike Wagner.
Well, no,
Number
no,
12,
12.
please.
12,
Well,
approve a memorandum of agreement with Teamsters.
The union thing.
Got to take these classes off. Okay. Approved memorandum of agreement with Teamsters reference vacation accrual.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we're gonna get,
I'll make a motion to accept notice of retirement for Dallas Mike Wagner as presented.
I'll second it.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Approved wastewater supervisor job description updates.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the wastewater supervisor job description update as presented.
Any further discussion? Or I need a second?
Yes.
I'll second it. Any further discussion on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Public Works memo, accept the recommendation, reference Public Works wastewater staff hiring transition plan. Does everyone have a chance to look at that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I thought it looked good.
Tom, did you wanna,
I'm just here to answer any questions you might have.
does anyone have any questions for Tom?
Nothing.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to accept recommendations from Public Works wastewater staff hiring transition plan as presented.
I'll second it.
okay, questions? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Set special council meeting to canvass election results, November 12th, 5 p.m. Potentially, there will be a workshop associated with that, which we discussed earlier.
Yes, I do have to, we can plan on that and schedule that. I do need to confirm Widseth would be available to present. But we can proceed with that and I will confirm with the council if the 12th at 5 p.m. works. We do have a set window where we have to canvass the election results. So that's why that's
So
recommended.
we may have to do another date for the workshop potentially.
Potentially, but
Okay.
we'll
Okay.
likely
we'll
they
see.
should be available.
So November 12th, does that work for everybody?
No.
We just need a quorum.
Huh?
In the woods.
We need to do the canvas between the 11th and the 18th. The 11th is Veterans Day, so not the 11th. If the council would like to pick a different date, 13th, 14th, or 15th, or 18th is Monday, might work well.
That's the latest you can put it on to.
If I understand, we just need a quorum, correct?
Correct, but if we're trying to have the downtown master plan conversation as well, I think it would
I
be
forgot about that. Yes, yes.
advisable. So how does the 18th look? Monday, the 18th?
Good.
Good.
Change it to the 18th.
If that's
18th.
available.
Make whatever date you need work.
Okay,
Looks good with me.
Huh?
we just need a quorum.
I mean,
Well, it's fine.
yep, I mean, I'm good for any date. So
Yep.
I can make it work.
We can even just canvas on the 12th and we can schedule the downtown master plan
For another-
workshop for another day.
Yep.
If that's
Yeah,
makes more comfortable to,
I would
would be better. Okay,
I'd like to get it done quicker too.
okay. If you're okay with that,
12th,
Bruce.
you'll be gone on the 12th.
Yeah, we'll be gone.
Okay,
But I'm available on the 12th.
I'm available.
it's a
I'm available on the
5-minute
12th.
meeting to
Yeah,
approve
so
the
why don't we set,
results.
let's set the meeting for the 12th.
Okay.
So that we're not waiting till the last minute, so staff has time to get things done.
I will confirm some dates with Widseth and follow up with the council on the workshop.
The 18th, the workshop.
No, I will,
Any date.
no, I will
date?
follow up.
Okay,
I will
perfect.
follow up. Yes.
Just
Okay.
let me know.
So a motion to set the canvas date for the 12th at 5 p.m., please.
Mr. I'll second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Then old business.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a recommendation to move to closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 subsection 3C regarding consideration of offer of for property purchase.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are now in closed session. So we'll take a short recess. Correct?
Yes, I apologize. I need to give you the
PID number.
parcel IDs. One moment. Because I have it right here. So PIDs, I'm gonna just state for the record real quick, 281-50636, 281-50637, 281-50547, 281-50604. We'll add to the motion. Yes, and now we are in closed session and we'll take a 5-minute recess.
Yep.
Thank you.